Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just my own stuff.
And what I'm trying to get at with where we're going, we're going through the secret of light. And one of the reasons that we're going through the secret of light in lieu of the home study course is I've seen some comments on the chats that unless we actually go through the secret of light and maybe understand some of its concepts first, it's a lot more difficult to actually understand the home study course. So maybe people can relate to that, and I don't know if that's the case or not. But
Wait, you're saying that it's better to start with the secret of light and then move to the home study course.
well, I'm saying that that's what I saw in the chats. That's what I kind of saw, and that's really the way the books were written. Correct?
Right. I think that's great. I can just speak to that a little bit because I'm 3/4 of the way, maybe a little bit more through the secret of light with my daughter. We're doing it very slow, but they had the home study course. I got that also. I had to. Anyway, I got the home study course, and I am on the first book, and I can just from being on the first book, I can see. I can see that makes sense to start with the secret of light. That's just sort of what I think right now, if you wanted to know.
And so with that being said, I'm very happy that you agree, because I think that's how we may, because this is very difficult material. I'm sure we all agree on that, and it's maybe a new way of thinking for some of us. So as we move forward, there are two goals that Walter Russell had in the home study course. One was to make them aware of a higher source and to actually align with that source. And in the home study course, it actually is more of a how-to, how to align and how to do those things. To where the secret of light is more of a in-depth exploration of the theory behind that. So as we go through this, you may want to keep your eye on the prize of these two goals that Walter Russell has. The first being to kind of know the source, and the second to realize that our world is not real, that it is a kind of a cosmic cinema before our eyes, and that's how we experience it. So with that being said, you guys want to do any questions before we start?
I think we have somebody on the phone now. Do you see that, Will?
Yes.
It could be Robert.
We have a 1605 number. Do we have a name for that? If you want to put your name in the chat. Oh, you can't do it in the chat. So anyway, hello, whoever that is. We've now started our meeting, and we are recording to let you know in case you didn't hear that. So let's go ahead and start with the first question.
Yeah.
So we are on chapter 2, and within chapter 2, the title of this chapter is Creator and Creation. So the first question that we have is, can someone mute? They have some feedback coming through. Does anything exist apart from God? From page 12. And the answer is no. Any comments or discussion on that topic?
Well, I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't believe me if I told them that. That's just kind of what came to my mind, Yeah.
Does everyone here believe that?
Well, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. And
It
it's
comes from the light from up there. Well, up there inside.
Yeah, as I said to you guys before, I think just several months ago, wasn't thinking about this at all. And I would have said, I don't know if I would. I think I've come a long way since my teens, where I was just naively saying no, but and I think I've kind of thought about a spirituality in nature, but wouldn't use that word at all until recently. And it was this it was this kind of realizing what Walter Russell was saying just by listening to Bear and I think some videos with Matt Presti or some, forget exactly what I watched.
Yeah. And within Walter Russell's description of God, it comes from a rather Christian perspective, but his take is not, I would say, a mainstream or a fundamentalist view of Christianity. And, he often uses the term source and not God. And so as he looks at what God is, we can actually explore that a little bit more. Does anyone else get any impression of what Walter Russell was referring to as God?
I was thinking universal mind because I know later he says that, but
I guess if we, I don't know if everybody's looked at the chat recently, a couple of images that were shared. Russ shared a couple of images of the ferrocell and what's in the middle of the when you put a magnet up to the ferrocell, in the center it's black, it's complete stillness, there's a negation of motion, and you could say that's where God resides, really.
And that stillness in the center?
The fulcrum, as Walter would say.
All right. Any more discussion on question 1?
I mean, it was interesting to hear what you were saying, Jeremy, because I feel like I kind of went through the same thing this year or over this past year and through Matt Presti in the podcast, and just like, it's just, I never ever would have thought. I just feel really so lucky, or I guess blessed, to have been introduced to this. So there's something else I want to say, but I forgot. But it was, yeah. It's just it's been really
A startling awakening.
so
Surprising.
beautiful. Like so
Yeah.
unbelievably like actually it's just like almost like I feel like that beauty exists, and then you find out it really does. Like that's kind of part of how it felt for me. I was just like, it's like so intense. It's so
now I've put up the diagram that Yannick was speaking about. Can people see that?
no,
On the Telegram or where?
On our screen, is
No.
it?
No, we
Okay.
still see the document that you had been sharing.
Okay, hold
I
on.
don't see that
I
anymore.
haven't had a chance, but I noticed there were a lot of messages, and it looks like there's some amazing images.
Oh, here we
So
go.
this is the one.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh my, oh God.
Do you want to take some time and explain this, Yannick, a little bit?
Yeah, so a ferrocell has just basically got a ferrous liquid inside it, and it also has LED lights.
And the ferrous liquid is just an iron-based liquid.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And there's LEDs all the way on the outside. So these swirly points of light are where where you're seeing the LEDs essentially. So the more LEDs you have, the more swirling points of light you'll see. But as you'll see, they all swirl inwards and outwards. And as they get to the center, there is a black hole, which is essentially the 0 point, the unified, sorry, not the unified field, but essentially God, the fulcrum from which it all extends. So that black hole you're seeing is what you could define as God.
And I think the the self-similarity or the as above, so below kind of principles are so interesting in that respect, because we're talking about things at a a galactic scale, black holes. We're talking about this down at the atomic level, and Santos also talked about that as the in the heart, in the red shift, blue shift. He talked about the heart being that same place. I mean, I don't, not so much that that we've got a black hole in the heart, but it's that like point of transition from the between the well, as the blood comes in, passes through the vortex of the heart, and is accelerated out the other side.
So now I've put up a diagram from Walter Russell. Can you see that black and white diagram?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think,
And it's exactly what you're seeing from the ferrocell. You look at the center, there is the hole, and from that extends the centripetal and the centrifugal pressure variations of the electric thinking portion of yeah, sorry, I'm kind of butchering that, but
Well, it has, and both directions are related, right? But it goes both ways to balance, I think, right?
correct, yes.
Yin yang.
It's showing the, yeah, it's showing the inward centripetal motion and the outward centrifugal motion from the center of or the fulcrum, essentially.
Yeah, with these arrows and the white and the black arrows there.
mhm.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, so this is actually showing the motion coming this way. So actually it's also with the line. So when you see the kind of dotted line is the
The dotted line.
coming in.
Okay.
And then you have the opposite direction here, and these all go, the black stays in the clockward, clockwise, and then the counterclockwise is going this way. So, and they all go, so the white goes to the center and the black comes out from the center. They're saying that the black is the positive discharge and that the white is is it negative here? It says positive and negative.
The centripetal motion, so the one that's going from out to in, would be positive, and the
So,
reverse is
yeah,
the
so-
discharge.
So right here, we see the I don't know if you guys see where my arrow is, but we see the little positive sign here and here. And then we see
Oh,
the
yeah.
negative sign here and the negative sign here. So,
What's his name? Talks about that it's like two Tauruses
mhm,
next to each other. And
mhm.
that one goes, clockwise and one counterclockwise. But
Yes, and that is I think I have that. I think I also have that diagram too. So here,
so Walter Russell also was into said everything was a Taurus.
yes, he's the one that actually. I mean, I believe that Santos actually gets that from Walter Russell.
That's why I was asking if that's where he gets it from. Gets
Yeah.
it from all these different people.
Yes.
But he says that everything is a Taurus in some way.
Yes.
That's the motion in which God uses his thinking. Everything is spiral within this universe. Everything is
Yeah.
spiraling inwards or outwards, depending on its gyroscopic what's the word I'm looking for? Just where it is in its cycle, essentially.
Are people seeing this kind of
Yeah.
toroidal now?
Mm-hmm.
With both.
I just wanted to also quickly mention, if you notice as well, Walter Russell talks about charge and discharge. He doesn't talk about positive and negative charge, because it's an oxymoron to say something is a negative charge, because charge means to charge something. You can't have a negation of charge, which is why he uses discharge. And he explains this, I think, later on.
That's something Darren Colum explains pretty well. Like, yeah, his videos really help me understand some of this stuff for sure.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, that was one of the first videos I shared because I think Leo actually is the one that said, I'm not negative, So she kind of got him to make sure that he stayed on both sides where actually charge and discharge.
One thing that I thought was kind of cool, sometimes when I'm studying with my daughter, we'll get scrap paper and we'll like try to draw it so we can visualize it and understand it. And we were doing the toroidal field, or I was trying to draw it, and like, so she was sitting sort of diagonal from me, and so she wasn't seeing it the way I was. She was seeing it like on a, not upside down, but like from a different angle. And she's like, "Oh, that kind of looks like the infinity sign, the
Yeah.
wait, why can't I draw it right now? That like an 8, and I was like, oh yeah, like if you can almost break it down, because it's like, I don't think that's the direction it necessarily flows. But I thought that was kind of, because in a way it's kind of like,
It's a visual representation. Yeah, it's a different.
yeah, I thought that was interesting. I don't know
Mhm.
where they got the infinity symbol, but
I think Santos mentioned that in one of the videos. Maybe it was.
does he? Yeah, I haven't watched that one yet. I would like to. Yeah.
Alamana, I think that is that figure 8.
What's that?
Analemma, I think it's called. The figure 8, the infinity sign.
Uh-huh.
That's a name for it?
I believe it's called analemma, yes.
Oh.
And what was it? He was very much today, believes in flat Earth and shows, where it goes.
All right. So let's, as we begin to talk about the arrows and how they go in and out, let's look at question 2. What is the illusion of creation? And from page 13, it is motion. Any comments or discussion on that?
I think we kind of alluded to it already with the 2 pressure conditions. Those diagrams that you showed. But I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about more.
So for us to see motion, we actually also need the concept of time, because we have to see something start and something finish. And so oftentimes, I think what Bear speaks about is that it's an illusion, because time's an illusion. And so we are actually all, as we get back to, does anything exist apart from God? No, God is everything. Everything's happening at one time, and everything is happening. But for our minds to understand, we have this illusion of motion. Any comments on what I said?
I think it's the way our mind works, isn't it? The thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, yeah. It's like the way, if we look at waves in the ocean, it's seemingly that you watch a wave travel, but actually what you're only seeing is it's actually what's happening is it's a piston action. So you see one part of the wave go up, but it gives the illusion that it's moving. So we're really only just seeing one half of the cycle at any one time, just down to the way our senses perceive things. Does that make sense?
I think it makes as much sense as the idea that motion is an illusion. This is a very difficult concept, I think, because it's so different, right, than what we're used to.
Well, it's just like that statement. I don't know if it was in the first chapter or something I saw, that light doesn't travel. So I don't know if that was in chapter 1 or it's just in general in the intro of the book, or, people think that light travels. Like that's what we've been told. To go to the moon or to go to the light has to travel at some number or something. Light speed, they keep talking about this, which is not true then, according to, I think we'll learn anyway.
That's great. So
Yeah.
It's not a finite speed, is what they're saying essentially. Is what you're getting at. It's not the fastest thing in the universe. It's just
Yeah. What I got from some stuff is, how people say to get to the next dimension, we have to speed up. It's actually the opposite. We have to be still. So I don't know. That's what I think. But because when we meditate, we expand, we go to a point, and then we polarize, and then we wait, if you like, from a point, what comes from from that source. So it's I don't know, it's very different anyway.
And I think that when we looked at the other diagram that we were looking at that center that was empty, that's the stillness of God, right? And so God's not moving. It's everything that we're seeing around God. And so that stillness that Giselle is talking about is that centeredness.
Imagine, you remember the black hole? It was talked about just, I don't know, months ago. I mean, I know nothing is being talked about right now, but when it was, maybe it was last year, what they said, that they heard something from the black hole. Well, that was the monad speaking. I mean, anyway, in the esoteric circle, it was a big deal. The sound that came from that, sorry, from the black. People think the black hole is going to suck them in. But sorry. Anyway. Well, yeah, if you look at that circle, it's going back there, but it's a good thing. That's what I'm saying. It's not a bad thing. Anyway.
I think it's great. Okay, let's go on to number 3.
Number 3.
Can humans know God? And from page 13, the answer is yes. Any comments on that question and answer? Do you think that most people believe that humans can know God?
We can know God if we well, we have to know ourselves. But that's a big statement, but you have to, the more we know ourselves, we will know, because we're an image, if you like. So I think so.
And I think even like just what you said, like the more you know yourself, something about that with even no image, brings you closer, or that's what I feel like I'm discovering in a way, or, in nature too, but yeah. What did you ask again?
Well, I said, do most humans believe
right.
that they can know God?
I feel like just from what I see around me, where I am, there's many people that don't think maybe even about it, or maybe it seems like they don't think they can, or they don't think that there is. But I feel like then there's also a lot of people that want to and believe that they can. So yeah, I don't know why I didn't need to say that, but
That's great.
yeah.
I think everybody does have the capacity to know God. It's whether where they're at in themselves as to whether they want to know God or whether they want to inquire about God. And I posted something on the Alpha Vedic channel recently about Alan Watts, and his one thing he talks about is, he says, if you could dream any dream that you wanted to dream, and you had the capacity to dream, say 75 years of life in a dream, he says you would first start off with all the things that you could ever want. He says after about 3 months of dreaming, you would then want, essentially, like if you were to imagine a vending machine that held all the buttons of everything that you ever wanted, you would eventually want to have a button that was a question mark, that would be mysterious to what you want. You'd want something random. You wouldn't want to be able to choose. And as time went on and you kept dreaming and dreaming and dreaming, you'd eventually want something that you would have no idea about, and also forget that you were also dreaming, eventually losing yourself so deeply that you would forget that you were even God itself, just to have that experience of being within that illusion. And I kind of think people do go through that, where they want to forget completely where they come from. And eventually, I do believe people will come back around to wanting to find out who they are. But it just takes lifetimes possibly to be able to get there. We may have gone through many lifetimes of being completely asleep just to experience and not know who we are. And all of us here today are just now coming together to come back around again and know God once again, or know ourselves once again, really, because obviously we are all God in a sense. Hope that makes sense. I mean, I butchered
That was beautiful, Yannick.
I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Alan Watts.
Okay.
Like the way Alan Watts described that one thing, like, just, it kind of disintegrated me, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
It just, when I heard it, it was just like, yes, this is exactly what experiences. God has put himself under this spell to experience everything, and even to the point where God doesn't even want to recognize himself within it. Just goes so deeply that even he does not recognize himself. But that's all at different points, because we're all different points of light, or lenses of light, of the light. And I think, like the motion, the picture of the motion, our souls will start from God, and we will go through a cycle, and then eventually we'll come back around again to end up where we once started, and then we may even go through it again. I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
and
a thought.
I think it's a great thought, and I think that brings up a question also of, I think Giselle was alluding to it also, is where does God reside, right? Does he reside within us? You know, and as you were talking, it was pretty clear that, you know, you see yourself as having God within you. A lot of the thought today is that God's exterior to us, you know, he's a man outside of us, or a being outside of us with a white beard and so on and so forth. And that's a God that's hard to know, because it's a remote God. It's not really part of us. And there has to be communication between two separate entities, to where if God resides within us, it's oneness with God all the time. So that could be a little bit more of a knowing of God once he resides within us, rather than viewing it as an exterior entity also.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of man's disconnect is just the way that we live in this world, where a lot of people are living in cities and they don't really get out into nature much and observe nature. And that's something I love to do, is be out in nature and observe it and watch it. And when you sit there and watch it, you can't help but know that there is an immense intelligence that underlies everything.
Giselle, did you want to say something?
Nope, I'm good. All I was thinking was, we're gonna remember. We're gonna remember who we are.
Oh yes.
That's what we're doing.
The my wife was talking about art recently, and I'm not going to get this quite right, but maybe some of this will ring familiar to you guys, and how real art, a very difficult thing to describe, but I felt like this was the first time that I really understood art. It's holding the space in between the two poles of contradiction, perhaps, or not, and it's being in that space, and it's almost the same concept as this toroidal field, where there's a neutral space in the middle, and that there's these energetic opposites apart from them. And I love that idea of art, because it's basically saying, like, art is God, like real art. I think there's a lot of confusion around it, and there's a lot of stuff that is out there that's pretty, and some people call that art, but I think when you really get to the heart of it, that was an interesting description of it. And then one other thing related to that, around this kind of confusion that people hold, I read recently that it was like the Ecumenical Congress of 1839 or something, ordered a change in the teaching of our relationship with the spirit, and that it was the three parts, the body,
the Trinity.
The Trinity, yeah, I guess, right. And it became a dualistic teaching that was mandated at that point, and which then you can't find that place in the middle. It basically like obscures God. There's no there's good and there's bad, but you can't have good without bad. And it just that was like I'd love to learn more about that moment in history and who was behind that, but it seems like a real devious maneuver that somebody did to get us away from a true understanding.
You mean like an outside force? So it's not part of God's.
Well, it becomes outside, right? When it's the Trinity, you can understand that you're a part of that, and you have that ability to hold those spaces. Look at, I thought Giselle was on a big stage for a moment.
Huh?
No, never. I just got distracted because it looked like you were up on a stage. But right, if it's a dual nature, you can't. There's no place. There is no middle. Where do you sit in that? I can't articulate it very well, but it made a lot of sense to me.
Well, we can go on to the next question, which is kind of talking about what you were saying with art, is can humans
Hmm.
know God's body? From page 13, the answer is no, but we can see it. So where can we see God's body?
Mirror.
You just have to look out.
Yeah,
It's
everywhere. I
Um,
don't.
I'm thinking the light that could shine. I mean, you know, if we develop our senses like Steiner talks about, there are people that can see the light coming from everything. I mean, you can feel it. I mean, so I don't know. That's what came to my mind. The radiance, or
I think in this context, it probably just alludes to more the
form.
material universe.
Okay.
That's my understanding anyway. I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it may go a little bit to what Jeremy was saying, though, that there is a God consciousness in certain things like within art, that we can actually see that, and within nature, the beauty, and within the cosmos, we can see that. And when we actually perceive that the things that we're taking in our eye that we see is God, then God permeates all things.
Mm.
And we actually get that sense that God is everything.
Yeah.
Anybody else would like to say something on question 4?
That's what we just did. No?
Yeah. Is there anything else? I'm going to move on to question 5.
Well, it's a little strange to be like that you can't know God's body, but you can see it. It's almost like, yeah.
And it goes a little bit back to question 2, right? So what is the illusion of creation? Is motion, right?
Right.
And so we see it, but it's really an illusion because God is all. So again, we're kind of being fooled by our senses that we can't know what we see. We know what we experience in our hearts and in our consciousness.
Yeah, I think there's a good I won't be able to explain it here, but and I'll have to find it, but I think Walter Russell has something from the Divine Iliad that articulates exactly what you said, or these points here between question 2 and 4, where he does explain how you can know God, but you cannot know his thinking, essentially, if that makes sense. There's a clear distinction between knowing, i.e. God's mind, and the illusion of the thinking. I'd have to find it to get my point across, and I'll find it and I'll post it in the chat.
Well, what I took notes of page 13, like they were describing God's thinking and imagining are qualities. And then he talks about God's knowing. So with the lines he was using, I was thinking from above to below. So anyway, he ends up with, so likewise, man's thinking and imagining are as timeless and still as his knowing. So that was on page 13 that I took that down. But I know after question 5, we're going to 14. So
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
didn't want to miss that, because when I wrote this, I was thinking it's like a meditation from above to build, like, anyway,
I guess if you look at it from, I don't know, if you look at it from the human body, you can't know the whole body by looking at a blood cell. You know, a red blood cell. You can't know the entire body just by looking at that, and it kind of comes back to that point where, and as you say, it's an order of things, and first comes mind, or universal mind, or God. From there extends those two electric pressure waves, which is the yin and the yang, if you want to call it that, and from those creates that motion or seeming motion to as our sense perceptions perceive it. So you cannot know God through those sense perceptions because it's an illusion. But if you remain still and if you meditate, then you can know God, because I don't know, you've kind of also negated yourself from having to think, overthink, or create too much motion in the body, where you can come to that place and know God, if that makes any sense.
I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think a lot of that's in question 5.
Okay.
So,
I apologize. I'll have to drop off, but
okay,
yeah, really nice spending time. I'll see you guys next week.
okay,
And
thank you.
Take care.
I'll tune into the recording too. So thanks for recording.
Okay.
Have a good week.
Take care.
Thanks, Jeremy. Bye.
So question 5 is, what 2 universes seem to exist? And from page 14, we have 1, the still cosmic mind universe of knowing, and the moving thought universe of mind sensing, which merely seems for man cannot know. And it's almost really kind of a compilation of questions 3 and 4.
Yeah, that's a good. I didn't even look at that before, but that's a good. Yeah, good little line there. But it takes some assimilation to process what's actually being said there.
It's good to hear, like it was good to hear what you were just saying, Anik, because sometimes when you hear it in a different way, you know what I mean? Like it's like just this different angle where it's like, what helps
Yeah,
me.
yeah, I experience that all the time, that somebody will say something and I won't get it, but somebody comes at it from a different angle, as you say, and it's like, oh,
That's what they meant.
it makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more comments on question 5? Any discussion on the ideas of the still cosmic mind universe of knowing and the moving thought universe of mind sensing? Any comments on what mind sensing may mean?
Well, I just thought of, I was just wondering, like, because we tend to see only one half because, you know, of, because we see the movement, and someone was saying, I don't know if it was Darren, call him again, but like that, it's something about like when you die, you, it's like you turn inside out. I don't know if that has to do also with his experiments with the, I don't know if you guys saw with the iron shavings, how they would go to the coil and the, it's like the, it would form the form. So that makes me feel like the form, the physical. So like that when you die, you kind of go inside out. So just what you're, I wonder if when you're on that other half, or I guess I shouldn't say dead, when you're would it be unfolded? If you can know, like we don't know because we're not in that, we're not that, we're not on that side. So just seeing this question, like, I wonder if it's like when you're on that side, you can know, but you can't know that you can be a physical form. Should I even go there?
No,
It's just made me, like, it's interesting anyway, for me.
yeah, the whole idea of the questions is that there's really no right or wrong answer. I just write down what the book says.
Right.
The idea is that they're going to make us think and know and explore what he's saying and how that relates to us in our world and our thoughts.
Well, it's so funny because I had some time today to read chapter 2, and like I had time, and I'm like, it just, I read one page, and then like I noticed like for like 10 minutes, I'm just like my mind's, like understanding it, like taking it in and trying to make sense of it. And I'm like, it took me like, I don't even know how long to read like 4 pages, but it's great, it's great. So yes. Mhm.
But that's good though, to sit there and spend time reading, even if it takes you a month to read 4 pages, it means that you're sitting there and you're processing it and meditating on it and really assimilating the information that you're reading. Because a lot of people tend to read things, but they're taking in information, but they're not knowing the information, if that makes sense.
Well,
They don't-
yeah.
Yes, for me, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, well, that's what's so beautiful about it, because I feel like, when you, like Giselle was saying, like when you're meditating and you're going inside and you're learning who you are, when you're in nature and you're like observing nature, and, there's like all these pieces.
Mm.
And when you're reading this, like, I feel like these pieces are connecting, so that's why like one page, it's like, one sentence that he says, or like even a definition of something he means, like can be so much from like, this connections. You can, for me, like it's like a puzzle putting together, and it's like, yeah.
Mm.
I'm
Yeah,
what-
I was reading the intro to the home study course, and one of the first things he says is, one of the first things he talked about is his experience of his 39 days, 39 nights illumination. And he says that he would go into periods of negation, so complete stillness, because that's where the information is coming from. So if we're talking about still cosmic mind, that's what he's referring to. In order for him to access mind or the knowing of mind, he has to himself negate all motion within himself. And when he came he would also come out of that kind of state that he was in, and then he would make notes. And you could say that the coming back into motion and making notes is the thought universe of mind sensing.
Mhm.
So from the stillness you access knowledge, and from that knowledge you can then put it into thinking, which then brings it back into motion. And I think I kind of mentioned it last week. If we use the analogy of carving a sculpture, is you will be still and you will receive the image out of nowhere, which will prompt you to think on that idea. And using that thinking, we can use our body to maneuver and shape a piece of stone into whatever we want, or the idea that came to us in the first place. So there's that kind of dynamic between the two. It's from stillness comes motion,
Yeah, that's really,
and then back into stillness again.
and I feel like unfortunately not enough, I'm just going to say children, but that goes for everybody. I'm sure they don't give themselves or have that as much of a chance to do that, I think. I mean, or, at least like I've worked in schools and I just, I don't mean to go off on a different, in a different direction, but what you're saying is so important, right? Like to have that stillness, to have that, like just laying, quiet and the stillness, and like, that's something. But I feel like, a lot of, at least, it seems less and less important, which is not good. I guess.
I think we had that. Well, I lived in the rural when I was young. And as long as the kids can play and around trees or whatever, climb or just do what they do, I still think they get that sense. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I had that too. I feel like I feel like because so many kids have the cell phones and the technology.
oh yeah, well, yeah.
I mean, maybe more like now, maybe not when I was a kid as much, Anyway, yeah, I didn't mean to go in a different direction, but it's really beautiful to hear what you're saying about that,
And I don't think that stillness was ever promoted even within the religious circles or church circles. I know there's an adage that I always heard was that idle hands are the devil's playthings, which
Yeah.
is saying that if you are idle, you're working with Satan, not with God. And so sometimes these things that come to us or that we're told aren't really for the benefit of finding God. Here we're finding that no, stillness is of God, and busyness may be of the devil. Who knows? But so
flip it on its head,
yeah. So I think that there's a lot of things in our lives that have wanted to keep us busy, because when we're not busy, that's when we do find God in that still small voice that speaks to us in that stillness.
Well, I think it says bad things to most people, though, and not something as simple as that. I mean, like it's takes over. It's like they become controlled by whatever matrix they fell into. I don't know. It doesn't seem related to what the universe seems to exist, I guess.
The internal chatter you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've all had that. I mean, when we're too involved in something and we have to step back, we've all had that,
That would come under the category of thought universe of mind sensing.
But earlier you were saying that some people don't get it because they don't pay attention. I don't understand how that's related to this particular question though. Or did I miss something?
I guess when you say you said, who said? I said? Or
No, I don't remember who, but the question is what two universes seem to exist. And I think some of the conversation was that people don't pay attention, they don't read it, they have the phone. And I was just a little confused how is that related?
I don't quite follow.
Well, I
I'm
think-
I must have.
Go ahead, Jessica. Go ahead.
No, I was thinking, so maybe it is a bit related because the moving talks about the moving, the mind sensing. So
I think we just went off on a little bit of a tangent.
yeah, a little bit, yeah. I think so.
So you could ignore that.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was my fault.
No, it's all good.
It's all good. Okay, let's move on to question 6. Now, this is, maybe Yannick can help us on this one. What force do humans mistake for magnetism? And from page 14, the answer is electricity.
This is a big one.
Where was that image you started putting?
This one,
Related?
this one?
Yeah, is this related?
Kind of, it's kind of the still magnetic light universe. And this is a little bit, I think that some things that are confusing within the text, and I think even the University of Science and Philosophy talk about this, is that sometimes Russell interchanges his words of electricity and magnetic when he talks about it. We live in a still magnetic light universe, when we're actually saying that we mistake magnetism, we mistake electricity for magnetism.
Wasn't it magnetism for electricity?
Yes, exactly. And yet within this diagram we see he's calling it a still magnetic light. So any comments or thoughts on electricity and magnetism, the differences?
If we're going through to what Walter refers to as magnetism, it's nothing to do with electricity.
You know, I have right
So-
here the two definitions of electricity and magnetism. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. Yeah, if you've got it there.
Yeah, so on the University of Science and Philosophy website, under the Secret of Light videos, they the first video, they talk about the definitions. And do you want me to just read them?
No, go ahead.
So for electricity, it says electricity, the effect of strain, tension, and resistance caused by the energy of desire in the still magnetic light of mind to divide and extend the balanced unity of the one still light of universal mind into pairs of many divided units of thinking mind. And I'll just go ahead and read magnetism. Magnetism, the straining elastic reaction to the motions of electricity. Magnetism is not a separate force. It is a desire to return to stillness, that which electricity has disturbed. Its purpose is to extinguish the motions of electricity and would extinguish itself if it could. It is not an attractive force as defined by academia. It is a return to stillness in the universal vacuum. I love these definitions so much.
Well, that actually helps quite a bit for me,
Yeah.
because, you know, when they're talking about, like, when we see a magnet maybe, and we see the attraction, he's saying that that's not magnetism, that's electricity. And we would call that magnetism. And what he's saying is that magnetism is still.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of imagine it like, this is gonna not be very great, maybe, but like if the still magnetic, if this is the still magnetic light, God and the source, it's like, I feel like electricity, so you have desire, because we're all part of that. So there's I guess it feels like it's saying if there's a desire and it pulls away, and that pulling away is the strain. And if anyone thinks I'm wrong or wants to help me, you know, I guess I feel like, and there's different tensions of that strain, you know, of desire, maybe. I'm losing it, sorry. Does that make sense a little bit? Like,
Yes.
you know, I was thinking about it today, like, if it's really beautiful, because it's like, if there is the still magnetic light, you know, it's almost like, I was just imagining, it's almost like the desire in a way is to like almost pull away to know what that is. or something, because, you know, because, yeah, I don't know. That's one of the things I was like dreaming about when I was.
Well, that's what these cultures, ancient cultures, have always talked about, is that very thing is in order for God to experience itself, it has to put itself in these dream states, this type
You're breaking up, Yannick.
of reality, essentially. Where, oh, sorry. How about now? Is it any better?
Gets better.
Yeah,
Let me
now,
get
yeah,
out of this.
we're cutting up.
Better now. Okay, let me. So
Sprint commercial.
I'm in the office, so I'm kind of in all sorts of places.
Oh,
I've forgotten where I was.
Ancient
just-
cultures talking about the
dreams.
fire breaking away.
Yeah, that's right. So it's kind of God wanting to experience itself through different ways, and in order to do that, it has to create these kind of realities that we're experiencing, essentially, and going back to the still magnetic light. We saw it in the image of the ferrocell, where that is where that's where that still magnetic light is, and the streams of light that you see swirling around is the electricity. So the magnetic light is basically what the fulcrum from which the electricity is springing from. Yeah, exactly, that image there. So so we get confused with light in terms of incandescence, but that's not light, that's electricity. The still magnetic light is negation of all things, which is why he calls it still. That's my understanding or take on it, anyway.
Any more discussion on what force do humans mistake for magnetism? It's a great concept. It's a different way to look at the world. So number 7 is, does cosmic light attract or repel? And from page 14, we get neither. It is absolutely still. So cosmic light would not be magnetic. Is that what we're saying?
Not in the traditional sense.
In the traditional sense, it would be electric. Is that what we're saying? Or is it saying that light is magnetic, but magnetism doesn't attract or repel? And it's the electricity that attracts and repels.
That's a tough one too.
Can you read the question again?
Yeah, you can put it back up on the screen.
It's not on the
Yeah.
screen right now?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay, let me
We
go
see
back.
the diagram right now.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Can you guys see it now?
Yep.
Okay, so the question is, does cosmic light attract or repel? From page 14, it's neither. It is absolutely still.
Cosmic light, doesn't he mean the portal, the sun portal? He calls the portal, the sun a portal. Maybe that's not him.
Or does he mean it's the still magnetic light?
I think he means the still magnetic light, because that's what he says, it's still. And then he
Right.
calls it magnetic, which if we think in our today's science, we think that it would attract or repel. But what he's saying is that we mistake that term magnetism or magnetic action, and it's actually electricity. So what he's, from what, I mean, if we just kind of go A equals B equals C, then the stillness of the light would be magnetic, which neither attracts or repels, and it's actually the electricity that attracts and repels.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
I personally agree with that. Yeah.
Any comments or questions or need for clarification?
When I was reading this, the cosmic light is absolutely still, which is what well, it says right there.
Mhm.
I was kind of reflecting on the meditation that we're doing. And I wrote, that is why in meditation, we come at rest in a point of stillness. We're told for precipitation from the universal mind, the light. So it's like we come to a point and then we wait. It's like wait. It's like, I don't know, will invocation and evocation. Instead of praying, we invoke, and then it evoke. If you like, that light, God talks to us, or downloads, or sorry, precipitation is the word we're being told. So anyway, but that's in meditation. Okay, so maybe something different, but that's what came to mind. But
So what we're saying here then is that the still cosmic light, which is also called the magnetic light, neither attracts or repels, it's absolutely still. And that the motion that we think as magnetism is actually electricity. And so the stillness is the centering force that we saw in our diagrams, right? The center, the empty center is the mind of God, which is where the still magnetic light rests. Any more comments on that?
It's really interesting to think of something not attracting or repelling.
If you look at a bar magnet, if you put your iron filings so if you put your bar magnet down, you put your iron filings on, you'll see that they will go to either end of the bar magnet. And in the center of the bar magnet, there is no attraction. That's the fulcrum. That's what you're seeing on the other image of the ferrocell. It all dances around that negation, because that's the centering point that keeps it all in balance.
So you did it again. You explained it in a cool way.
Very good.
good.
It's good. Yeah, for me, like to have a visual is helpful.
Yeah, a lot of it is he doesn't use a lot of analogies to explain a lot of this stuff, and it's good to have analogies where you can kind of piece it together, because he's come from it from a pure source point of view, a complete download where he's received this information, and because he's had direct experience, he understands what he's talking about, whereas we mere mortals, if you will, struggle a little bit. I mean, we're all the same thing, and we do have access to that information, but it just helps sometimes, as you say, to have some analogies, I say real world, worldly things to compare it to.
And also we haven't really been taught, right? So like, you know, we're all, you know, I wasn't taught this in school.
Mm,
You know, these
definitely
weren't
not.
things that, you know, like, yeah, they, in one of the videos, they use the example of the apple falling to the ground, and they're like, they never thought about, like, you know, they just thought, you know, there was like only one half of that we're taught, right? So
Mm,
not, you know, there's so many other things that could happen and that do happen to the apple after it falls off the tree.
yeah, the apple rots and disintegrates.
Right. Or if it falls, what was it? Was that the flat earth movie? If it falls in the water, it, you know, everything, you know, balances in its surroundings or its medium, or anyway, I don't want to go off again. So don't let me.
Okay, we'll move on then to question 8. Can everybody see the questions again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, question 8, what must man know about his power? And from page 15, it is, his power lies in his centering self and not in the motion. He must become aware of the cosmic light of God in him. He must also know the universe is an electrically projected spectrum colored light and sound wave motion picture. Now, as I said earlier, this is one of the prime goals of Walter Russell in the home study course, is that we understand this aspect of light. So any comments on this question? Yannick, Yannick, you have people in the background where you are?
He's at his
Sorry, I'll
office.
mute.
Yeah, can you mute unless you talk? Thank you. So any comments on this question?
I just didn't hear the last thing you said about Walter Russell and what he said.
Oh, within the home study course, he outlines 2 goals for the study course. And one of those goals were that we understand that he must also know the universe is an electrically projected spectrum colored light and sound wave motion picture. So these are really actually the 2 goals of Walter Russell I think in the study, is that his power lies in this centering self, and that the world, that he must also know the universe is an electrically projected spectrum colored light and sound wave motion picture. So this is really kind of the crux of what Walter is trying to teach us. And that's why he says these are the 2 things that man must know. So any comments on, say, the first one, that his power lies in his centering self and not in motion?
Well, when you're in a situation in life, doesn't matter what you're doing, if you're able to step back and observe what came out of you or what you thought, you know, it's kind of like discovering there's something higher inside you that's looking at this. You know what I mean? It's kind of going to that center. And from that, you can decide to either say something or not, or do something or not. But anyway, that takes a long time to just kind of be able to observe every day, like what's prompting you to do something, you know what I mean? Like from from inside of you. That's what I think, you know, when in his centering self, because when you center yourself there and you wait, it's happened in my life where I've waited to see what I will say in a tense situation, and you'd be surprised what comes out of you. And it's like it comes from a different place, something that you didn't know you had.
You wish you didn't have.
Hmm?
And you wish you didn't have.
Oh, well, that too.
For me, it's also a little bit like, we're called human beings, right? So within this centering self, we're being, and we're not human doings,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
I like that.
If we were human doings, then that would be, this motion. So within our being, right, our centering, that's when we are our best selves. That's when we are encompassing the mind of God. When we are told that we should be doing all the time,
Mm.
but that's not what we are.
If we look at it from a worldly thing, for an analogy, it's like a seesaw. It's the centering point of the seesaw, which is where the power lies, where the two rock up and down. That remains motionless, but it allows the seesaw to move, the hinge, the fulcrum, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I feel like you hear it, in martial arts or in certain, activities like that. It's really important to have that center, that balance. So, that's a physical, that's, although it's not also physical, but yeah. And then like Giselle, what you were saying, like, you were talking about it in a less physical way, and it sounds like, I just know for myself also, like when the more that I can have that presence in me, it not only helps me, but it helps everything around me too,
So Yannick, would you want to talk a little bit? I think you have. Anybody else want to talk a little bit more about this self, the centering self, or would you like to move on to, and not in the motion? He must become aware of the cosmic light of God in him. He must also know the universe is an electrically projected spectrum colored light and sound wave motion picture. Has anyone here ever viewed the universe as an electric projected spectrum colored light and sound wave motion picture?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Did you have a headache the next day?
Only from the point of view of I guess the analogy is of what again different cultures have explained through the ages is if we imagine the still magnetic light as a bulb in a projector, if there isn't a filter in front of the lens, i.e. the film, then it cannot be projected. How do I put this? I'm lost with where I'm trying to get with that, but yeah, it's it is just basically just a giant movie play. So we've got still magnetic light, which is omnidirectional, and it goes through a filter or the film, essentially, if you're looking at a film projector, and then from that film it projects onto a screen, and we're the audience, essentially. We're sitting back and watching that screen, and all this motion that's happening and all this sound that we hear from the motion picture all comes from that light, but it is not that light, if that makes sense. So we're just seeing a diffraction of that light in different forms, which is the kind of color electromagnetic side / sound wave. Sorry if I'm not making much sense, but it's it's quite a difficult thing to try and reword.
It almost appears a little bit to be like Plato's cave too, you know, where and with Plato's writing, he talks about how there's people in this cave and there's people behind them that they can't see that are, you know, have a light and they're projecting things on the wall, and people are all watching the wall thinking that that's reality. And it's not, it's just people behind the scenes that are creating this illusion of reality. And even today, I think there's a lot of people, because of the lockdowns and so on, that are in their houses and their life is on a screen. I mean, it is being projected, and that's their lives. They're living the shows, they're living, you know, that's their world. So it's happening in almost a tangible way in some instances because of television and streaming and things that are going on. And so within this cosmology of Walter Russell, he's saying, and I guess it's really a science more than it's cosmology, that from the still light, what we're seeing is not a reality, it's really a projection. We think of it as matter because our minds tell us it is, but in reality, it's an illusion. Good Styx album, The Grand Illusion, that is being projected. And I don't know what's being projected onto when he says the screen. Is the screen, would the screen be the ether? Would it be, or would it just be, is there a screen, or are we actually the screen in our mind? I guess I'm a little bit confused on that point.
The cosmic screen, I don't know. It could just be what we perceive, essentially.
Well, it says a picture there. You know, sound wave motion picture. So
Well, there was no color.
like a form, you know what I mean? Like, or a diagram or geometrical form, whatever. So I think it's what our eye, our physical body can do with it. You know what I mean?
So the screen is really within us.
Well, I don't
Would be
even,
our brain. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
I'm
taking
thinking-
all the
I'm thi-
sensory.
well, I'm thinking, you know, we don't understand how, because I've never studied it, like about our eyes, you know, how light goes from here to here, and, you know,
Light
sure
doesn't move.
exactly, whatever. So I'm just saying, it's in, because when we're meditating, we're given things like connect the heart chakra to the crown and to the ajna, and then which makes like a certain triangle, and then we go from there. So I'm just saying, I think it's in our nature. Whatever we see out there, we're seeing it inside. So the screen, to me, it's like you said, I think it's inside of us, like, you know, in our
Consciousness.
yeah, well, in what
I
we're
guess
given, what we're
thinking mind.
given.
We don't actually see, though. It's all, you know, the frequency that hits your eyes then create that picture for your mind. There's nothing there. I mean, the physical things aren't there. I don't think they're in color either. That's, you know, there's nothing. It's what we create in our mind. So this could just as easily be created in your mind, since everything is with your eye. No. It's all an illusion.
It's all within anyway. Yeah, so it's what we're saying is it's within, not from without.
Yeah, and I'm agreeing. Hopefully.
Because everybody, I mean, people say, I see this, somebody else sees something else. We'll be looking at the same thing. But depending what we have, in our history, our senses, whatever, we'll see something different, eh?
All internalized.
Internalized, anyway.
And as we talk about this, right, it's this electrically projected spectrum colored light and sound wave motion. So now we're throwing sound in here, which is vibrational also, correct? Wave.
Yeah.
And it,
Or a pulse.
and it does give it some rhythm, you know, because a wave is almost a rhythmic, right? Harmonious. So has anyone ever heard this before? Has anyone, and within their studies before Walter Russell?
But Santos talks about it, but
Mm.
that's not before Walter Russell,
Mm.
since he uses a lot of it from Walter Russell.
Well, if we're talking about maybe a little bit before Walter Russell, there's John Keeley. He worked with sound, and it was more. He created an engine that used implosion technology, so it was water that was cavitating on itself to drive this engine. But it's interesting because I don't think I remember Walter talking about sound and spectrum light or electricity as two separate things, which is interesting. I don't recall that. I thought they would have been the same thing.
This is from the book, though, right?
Exactly. That's from the page. All I do, these questions are just copied right out. I just take a statement and I turn it into a question, basically.
Yeah, I'm just asking.
It's interesting. I don't remember reading that part. I'll be honest with you. It's been a while since I read the book, and I should get back to reading it again. It's interesting he makes that distinction.
Has anyone ever read like the book of John? The opening lines of John was, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God.
Yeah.
I think I heard Dr. Berlando say something like that once, and I was just like, oh, wow. Like, yeah.
And even within Genesis in the Bible, it says that God kind of spoke.
Or maybe that's.
And the world became, the world became in existence. So there's a lot, and within John, it also says that, that the Word was God and the Word was God. And that within that was the light of men. And so there's a lot of, reference to light and sound and within the Bible and within other writings, I believe. But it's never really been said that it was a projection, right? That it is like this is a reality, not that it's an illusion.
The Ark of Covenant was supposedly, they made all this smoke and they had a holographic picture in the Ark with them, supposedly, and the priests would write down the sound, which was coming from who, they said was God. So that's one example, if that's reality, of course, story.
Well, could we say, because you said projected there, it's written there, is that similar to we're made in the image of God? So I don't know.
I was having a hard time understanding actually the word, what projected, like what, that's a little hard for me to understand, I think.
Well, projection would be motion, right? And we get back to some of the top questions, is that motion is what? It's an illusion. So as this projection comes forth from the mind of God, it creates a motion picture. That motion picture is not real, but it is what our sensing body thinks is real. But without the motion picture, what would our experiences be outside of God? So as we speak about why why we are here, why man has been made, is that we are almost like the earth probes for God, right? We're sent out in order to have experiences of feeling and sensing. So it's not bad that we do these things, in my opinion, but we also relate these experiences. We can relate these back to God. And that's how he or she or it or the source actually have experiences, even though they're not real. Any comments on that?
I think you nailed it.
All right. Tomorrow you have your head tilted. That might mean you have a question.
I mean, now I'm listening. I'm enjoying and listening right
Okay.
now.
All right.
One to ponder anyway, one to meditate on.
Again, the only reason I'm kind of spending a lot of time on this and pursuing a little bit more is that he did say this is what he really wants us to get out of his work, are these two concepts. Okay, let's go move on to number 9. What is real, cause or effect? Page 16 says cause. Effect is a simulation. Any comments on that?
It's kind of goes right back to the one we just sort of talked about, I think. I mean, in a way. Effect is simulation.
Cause being God, and his
Oh.
thinking being the simulation. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. I mean, that it's explaining it. That's how I mean, I guess it doesn't really say that, but that's what it is, right? What you just said.
I think William was going to say something before I
Oh.
interrupted him. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was not.
Oh, cool.
I was just going to actually ask, asked a little bit more about the cause, and you were actually speaking about that. What do we think the cause is? The effect is the wave, the projected spectrum colored light and sound wave motion picture, right?
Mm.
So the cause is God's thinking, right? I mean, it's coming forth from the stillness.
We're on the next question though, aren't we? 9, right?
Yeah, we're on 9. What is real cause or effect? And we were just speaking that it really relates back to question 8. That the cause is his power lies in the centering self and not in the motion, which is the effect.
But he's saying the effect is a simulation.
Yes, the effect is a simulation. So when it says,
You said it was a wave, William.
what did I say was a wave?
The effect.
No, the effect, well, the effect is a wave because that,
Wait, so I'm thinking, yeah, so, well, anyway. And then because it's a wave, that's electrical,
Mhm.
isn't it?
Mhm.
Okay.
I would say yes.
I'm thinking too, the cause and effect thing. Because we're with Dr. Lando on Alpha Vedic, we're always, or even with the doctors that I saw over many years, be it TCM, homeopathy, we're always looking at the cause of things, not the effects.
I think we actually look at the,
like the
we
roots.
we look at the effects, not the cause. I mean, Dr. Lando looks at the cause, correct?
Well, we look at the cause, and the
Yes.
people that I saw, we looked at the cause, not the effects. So, but that's from You know, when you're looking at something, you look at the intention of something,
Mhm.
and then you see what it does.
Mhm.
So I think of it that way, but this is deeper here, like, you know,
I mean,
the
but it's
cause
all
of,
definitely related to what you're saying, because even when you like think about the German new medicine, you know,
And this is like with, Hermeticism, right? As above, so below, which yourself had spoken about, is that where do these effects that we see in the body, whether it be a rash or, a pain or anything else, is it really the effect that is being treated? And that's what a lot of,
yeah.
doctors and allopathic medicine does, is treat the effect
Hmm.
and don't really treat the cause. Or they may think that the effect is the cause, that it's a bacteria, right? Well, this is caused by this bacteria, and they're still not looking at the effect, at the cause. They're still looking at the effect. And so I think that's, a good point, that within our world today, we treat effects, we deal with effects, and we don't really concentrate on causes.
yeah, and it's funny because right here he's saying what's real,
Mhm.
you know,
Mm.
cause.
Hmm.
But spectrum could also, when if you go up, could be invisible light that you don't see.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, in homeopathy, sometimes when they're treating something, it's actually from like a more delusional state, which is
Mhm.
not, you know, is very different than, you know, maybe an effect.
Well, I'm thinking, William, since you studied biogeometry, and I remember listening to Dr. Gilbert, just this one, I guess, one talk he gave to the toxin dowsers,
Mhm.
and he kept talking about you could have something here and it's actually giving out an orange vibration, whatever.
Mhm.
And the quality of it is something that's going to heal you, or
Mhm.
we just can't see it,
Mhm.
but it's there.
And
So it's kind of like this full spectrum, whatever, it's there. It's just not that we can see it, but it's there.
and that's one of the illusions of our body, is that we think a lot of things are real when we have very limited sensing capabilities. There's all kinds of sounds we can't hear that dogs can. There's all kinds of
Yeah.
there's a lot of the world that's or the universe, or what our reality that's going on, that we can't even sense. And that's why a lot of it's an illusion, because it's only a partial picture also.
It's amazing, really, that we understand anything, which is why we have to go to stillness sometime, eh?
And I think, that's what I alluded to, I think it was last week, is that Steiner says that the only true knowing, right, is clairvoyance, or, omniscience from God. That's where we can know anything we want from the Akasha or from the mind of God, if we seek it. All right, let's go. Any more on cause and effect? Okay, let's move on to question 10. What is creation? Getting back to the creator. So I think we're kind of moving out of the creator, and what is creation from page 16. Creation is the product of mind knowing expressed through mind thinking. Any comments on that?
This is Walter Russell drumming it into us, all the different ways he expresses his terminology for what we've just been talking about.
So is creation real?
Oh, that's a good question.
In our sense of the word real? Or since it's the product of mind knowing expressed through mind thinking.
Then creation, yeah, is not real. No.
It is an electrically projected spectrum colored light and sound wave motion picture.
Mhm.
Yeah.
To the senses, yes.
Yes.
That's great.
Well, when I look at that sentence, with the meditation group that I'm in, he's showing us how to, if you want to create something in the world, when you're in that point of stillness, you'll get like you might get like later on, it'll implant something, it'll be very vague. But if you keep brooding at it every time you meditate, eventually this thing will form into something. And that can be for anything, be it that you're in business or in science. Then you will eventually, with your thinking mind, create something out there, like actually a new, I don't know, a new device or a new way to do a spreadsheet for trading. I'm just picking at that because I have a friend who's making new waves in finance. But it has to come from something kind of vague. If you come out with an idea, you wake up one morning and you say, oh, that's it. That's what I should be doing. Well, not quite. It's got to be more, has to come from higher, like it has to be nebulous. Anyway, so when I see this, the product of mind knowing, let me tell you, if you can get to that high level to get kind of an inkling, like a pattern, yeah. And then the thinking part, we'll do something with it, but it has to come from that knowing part. That's what comes to mind.
Anybody else? All right, let's move on to number 11. What is the foundation of the spiritual universe? From page 16, we get stillness, which is the positive principle of stability and unity. So for this spiritual universe, foundation is stillness.
I wish I had a book in front of me because I remember reading that today and I could understand that. It was the next one that was harder for me.
Well, since you understand that, can you elaborate on stillness?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's why I said I wish I had the book because I need the book. Let me look at it, but I might not be able to explain. I'm not always so good at that. Yeah, you might want to just keep going and I'll think about it.
Anybody else on stillness, which is a positive principle of stability and unity?
Well, I write down from the book, or this is from the book, and that exact, he puts balanced stillness.
Okay, balanced stillness.
Balanced stillness is the positive principle of stability and unity.
Okay.
In it, then are no negations, which I think, Yannick, you've talked about before in your examples. But I don't know, he uses the word balanced.
Okay, so I can change that to actually put in.
Anyway, just saying.
Yeah, that's good.
Stillness. Well, balance. Well, with stillness, I mean, that's what the fulcrum is, isn't it? At that point. But it's saying that that's the positive principle. Interesting. Well, that's a principle. That's a hard thing to, well, it's a principle is, it's like a higher, feel like a higher law if you were talking natural law. So when he says the word principle there.
I'd have to read the entire context of the book, but So balanced stillness. So yeah, balanced stillness is basically saying stillness is the balance from which stability and unity are basically bound, from what I can make of that.
So could it be like, for the spiritual principle of the universe is wholeness or oneness, which is this balance principle of balancing the twofold light that we've talked about, the duality, right? The two sex lights that we talked about last week. And so the spiritual universe holds that in a balanced stillness, which is the positive principle. And I think that, and I don't know for me, but I think that because of our programming, we have this idea of negative and positive, one being positive being, good, negative being bad. And it might just be a way that Walter speaks of this being a positive charge, not really positive in quality, maybe quantity more. I don't know if that makes any sense in terms of, and I know that that within the science of philosophy and so on, that they're moving away from this idea of the positive and negative and having both things just be charged and discharged.
That's why it would be interesting for me to read the entire context of that, because from what I've understood is the stillness is essentially the neutral point, and positive and discharge, or charge and discharge would be the electrical side of the universe.
Yeah, I
So-
feel
So it's interesting he uses positive principle for that. Interesting.
So this thing here where it says, let me see the question again. We're on what, 10? No,
Yeah. We're
on 12,
11.
11?
11.
Okay. So there's only 2 lines in there for this. So it says, okay, the foundation of the spiritual universe is stillness. The balanced stillness of the one magnetic light of God. And then it goes to balanced stillness is the positive principle of stability and unity. In it, there are no negations. But again, after the universe is stillness, the balanced stillness of the one, which you just talked about, William, the one magnetic light of God. That's the 2 sentences that are in there.
also, I feel like what's that last line where he talks about negation? Like if you go to the next one, which is
Sorry.
the negative principle. So like the negative principle helps me also understand the positive, because the negative is I believe it's the unbalance, right? It says, if you don't mind, I'm going to the next one. Motion, what is the foundation of the physical universe? Motion, unbalanced motion is the negative principle. So with the motion, there's the interchange, right? I mean, I guess they're, like you said, you were saying they're trying to get away from positive, negative, but it's the interchange, right? So it's one's negating the other, if I'm saying that correctly. So in a way, I wouldn't, maybe the positive principle might not be the opposite, but it's like, or maybe back to what you were saying, Yannick, about the bar magnet. And maybe I'm totally wrong, but it's in the center. There's no interchange there. That's does that make sense what I'm saying? So that's, yeah, right now anyway, the next one's helping me understand this one.
Totally.
And that's why I think the juxtaposition of the two is very helpful. So like if we look at the diagram again, right? which is kind of what he's speaking about here. Can everyone see that diagram now on my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
We do see the positive charge, we do see the negative charge here, right? We do see the negative charge here, we do see the positive charge here, and then we see the center. So within this center is the oneness and the stillness. So what he's saying is that within this is the negative charge, right? The positive charge would be the one coming from the center, and the negative charge would be the one going to the center. Does that make sense?
So one's coming out from the center.
The dark arrow is coming out, which he shows as being the positive charge here with the plus.
Hmm.
And then
I
what?
think
And he's
I think
he's calling this discharging, right? Is that what it
Yeah,
says?
I'm seeing that discharging.
yeah.
And
If you look at the symbols, the minus symbol is overriding the positive symbol, and then if you look at the dotted line, it's the positive symbol that's overriding the negative symbol.
Oh, yeah.
Does that
So-
make sense?
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I don't
so
think they're in balance, no?
yeah,
Isn't that the point?
they're in balance, but I think that Yannick makes the good point here is that the dark arrow is the negative, which is overriding the pot, because the outgoing is the radiation, correct, Yannick?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's
And
what
the-
he describes. Yeah.
And the end and the end going is the gravitation. Is it called gravitational?
Yeah, it would be it would be
Yeah. So
essentially gravitation.
yeah, gravitational and radial, right? So this would be the male principle, which is the gravitation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the outflowing is the feminine, which is the radiation.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're saying here is that in here is the stillness of God. These are really, like he says, charging and discharging, not really positive and negative. That is in his terminology, but the discharging and charging both have charge. And this is the male principle, the white line, the gravitational, and the dark line would be the female principle of radiation. Does that make sense?
Isn't it the other way around?
No, because the white line comes into, it's compression.
Okay.
The radiation is the female and it's going out. So it is discharging and the white is coming in and charging.
And isn't the center actually the magnetic field?
It's the magnetic light of God. It's the mind of God, the stillness. There's nothing going on here. There's no motion. Both of these lines are outside of the center. They don't meet. There's not a point in the center where they meet. They go around it.
The same when you watch when you drain the plug. There's always that negate. There's always that stillness in the center, and the same in the eye of the storm. It's always calm, but everything around it is chaotic. So we do see it in nature as well.
So
There's a lot in that diagram.
well, I mean, I actually understand this diagram a lot better now after this discussion. And thanks for pointing that out, Yannick, too, about the positive overriding the negative. It's a little bit unclear right there is what really is going on.
Yeah. because what it's saying is as well is that if we look at the discharge arrow, for instance, it's also saying that there is some positive element going on. It's just that the discharging is overriding the positive in that direction, and then it goes the same for the positive charge as well. That there's still some discharge happening, but it's just at a lesser level. One is always overriding the other. There's this constant interchange where let's talk about an apple on a tree growing from the tree. When it's growing, the the charge is the more dominant over the discharge, and then once it reaches the level of being ripe, then it flips, and the discharge then overwrites the positive charge, and then it starts to die off again. That's kind of an analogy to what's happening in nature. There's the two are always happening at the same time, just one is more dominant than the other in its cycle, or depending on which part of the cycle it's in.
So that could be like, well, so when it's dying, the apple, it's more
Mhm.
maybe more turning into gas, and that would be more
Yeah,
like
exactly. It's discharging. It's
charging,
It's radiating.
correct.
Because
Yes.
when it is concentrating, or gravitational, it's compressing into matter.
Mm.
It's becoming much more solid.
Mhm.
As it discharges, it becomes much more etheric, or begins to break down.
Mm.
so amazing to think that that happens to all different kinds of things, and how, you know.
And that's the illusion of what Newton called gravity, is that, you know, that all these different elements are going through a charge and discharge cycle, but as you alluded to earlier on, we only see the one half of the apple falling, and if we waited long enough, we'd soon see that it turned back into gases again. And that's the illusion of this idea of gravity, that or what we call gravity, where things are attracted to things. It's always, it's like a relative thing, you know. There's only, and I think he describes weight as being relative to bodies as well, is that there's only weight to something because you're comparing it to something else. But
Yeah,
he says how much does the earth weigh? Well, it weighs nothing because it's in space. Just like you weigh nothing when you go into water, because we are molecular, on a cellular level, 99.99% water. So it's it's a hard concept to wrap your head around.
yeah, like when there's balance, there's no weight, and then when it's out of balance, there's weight. Is that, I read that recently. I
Yeah,
read it again, but yes, that was,
yeah, correct. Yeah,
which is
in so
like,
many words.
yeah, or yeah, I think he was, maybe I have to read it again, but just so everything is in seeking balance, right? And in a position of balance, and yeah. I'm
So is
done.
that how do you think they were able to move all these stones to make the pyramids, and you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's definitely some elements to that. I mean, it could be
I
they
mean,
were able to
through
change
sound, or what, through
yeah,
sound or something.
through sound, through changing the electrical charge of a particular thing, could give the illusion of anti-gravity. I don't know.
Okay, so we're coming up on 7 o'clock, which is 2.5 hours, I think. I think might be a good place to stop here, even though it's been a wonderful discussion. Thank you all. It's been very, very enlightening. I think it's been great. But I guess we'll come back and we'll start on, let's see, on number 13 next week. And I'll save this and post it. And thank you all for coming. It's been wonderful. I really learned a lot and enjoyed it greatly.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
All right,
care,
guys.
everyone.
See you next week.
Yes.
Take care.
Okay,
Bye.
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 Hmm.
Super. All right.
Wait.